we're going to require everyone to come in with their ID so that we know that you registered for the exam. We've held off on that right now, so. Chris is going to go through what you see in front of you on your desk with a pen and the process and where to put the final result back.
So, yeah, two things. You have the final here that you can be working on. Also, out here, we're gonna give you time at the end also, but some of you are gonna go ahead and do that while we're talking because you don't wanna listen to us. So you're gonna work on, there is a teacher evaluation, form on your table with pens.
You can put Bobby's name on the left and give me all zeros going to Mike, and then Chris is on the.
No, there's 2 seconds.
There is?
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, well, Mike, there you go. You got your opportunity now.
And there is a basket somewhere back at the back on that table.
Right next to
To
the
put
card.
your evaluations and your pens back when you get done, please. Huh? On the cabinet, not the
Says,
table, on
says
the
pantry,
cabinet.
pantry up above.
Underneath the sign that says pantry. If you need a teacher evaluation, please take the one from Mike, because he's
Yeah.
gonna slam us when we know that, so.
And erase his name.
And Bobby, there's some negative stuff up here either.
Okay, well, yeah, you can use negative if it's that bad.
But you have a pen, so you can write in.
Yeah.
Be gentle, please. Okay, so we're just gonna pretty much review very quickly, the book Bait of Satan. So chapter 1, we talked about being offended, and remember we said that a lot of people were offended, and some of them actually have, had something happen to cause them to be offended, and some just perceived something. And so, really, before you get too uptight with anybody, maybe you should stop and do some self-evaluation. Did they really say what they said? Did they really mean what they said? Or was it something that I interpreted wrong, and there was no offense ever to begin with? Because a lot of arguments and problems caused because he said and he thought he heard, but what he heard is not what he said, right? There's a comedy song about what he said and what she heard, and what, he said, I wanna look at buying a motorcycle, and she said, and what she heard is, I wanna have a great big fight. So, take some time, give some allowances, but offense is a stumbling block, and the word offense, in the Greek in the New Testament is actually a word for the bait that Satan puts out there, or the part of the trap that Satan puts the bait in to trap you. So the offense is not the problem as much as taking the offense and running with it. That's when Satan has trapped you, and you are then unable to be productive.
You got, on your handout, there are 3 scripture references to the answer above. Matthew 24, Proverbs 18, and Hebrews 12. On the screen, we added more, so you can actually write those in if you want to from Luke 17:1. But back in Matthew 24:10, many will fall away and betray one another and hate one another. This all goes back into what Chris was just saying about how Satan will use that bait to trap us. Proverbs 18, a brother offended is harder to be won than a strong city. And then Hebrews 12:15, the root of bitterness defiles many. So add those other ones in too as we go along.
Yeah. So we know you have a pen because you have a pen to do the survey, so you can write in extra scriptures and extra thoughts and take this home with you.
Chapter 2.
Chapter 2.
Okay, blessed are the unoffendable. Since we get into offense, how do we now handle it so that we can become more like Jesus, who was unoffendable? He knew how to answer questions, and it says, to be unoffendable means refusing to allow circumstances, people, or injustice to control one's heart. Jesus endured rejection, false accusations, and betrayal without bitterness. Being unoffendable does not deny pain, it surrenders justice to God. So we're not going to be in a position to have revenge come at people when we're offended. We're not going to try to get them back. That's where we've got to look at how do we handle reconciliation, how do we go to a brother or sister and talk to them and make sure that we get this out, we discuss it. Forgiveness is a key part of that. If you're not willing to forgive, then it stops right there, because what did Jesus say? Unless you forgive God will not forgive you. So that's the point right there in all of this. And then in Isaiah 53:7, talking about the prophecy that Jesus did not open his mouth, when he was offended. In 1 Peter 2:23, while being reviled, he did not revile in return. And Luke 23:34, Jesus, Father, forgive them. Jesus forgave, therefore we should forgive.
All right, so chapter 3 was avoiding the snare. How does offense become a snare? And who's the one snared? We mentioned that a minute ago. You're the one snared when you're the one taking the offense. The person that did the offending may not even know they did it, and they're not the one with the problem. You're holding on to the offense. It's affecting your spiritual life, your spiritual growth, and your ministry, whatever you're trying to do. So how do you avoid that? Well, how does it become a snare? It becomes a snare when we justify it. Okay, it may have been a justifiable offense, but when we justify my taking the offense and say I am allowed to take offense at this because he did this or she did this, therefore I have the right to be offended, then I'm taking the bait. Or when we take, and I'm guilty of this one, rehearse it, I sit there and play it over in my mind, and you're sitting there, you're doing something that you don't need a lot of thought, and you just run it through your head over and over and over and rehearse it. You can't believe they did that. And when you're doing that, you're taking the bait. So what you do is you need to have humility, forgiveness, submission to God, and trust in God, because God said, you don't take revenge, let who handle it?
God.
Who could handle the revenge better, you or God? He's smarter, right? And he's more powerful, and so he's going to make sure that it gets handled. You ever have your kids fighting, and you say, "Look, you two separate. The older child does not need to punish the younger child. Let the parent do the punishment because you don't know what's going on. I have a better sense of what needs to be done." Guess what? That's where we are. Let God handle it. Get out of the way. Let him do it.
In his time too, not in Bobby's time, which
Right.
is ADHD. Do it now, get rid of them, smoke them right now. That's not going to happen. It's going to be in God's time. Because hey, part of that too is what am I learning out of this? See, there's the biggest part. Yeah, I can forgive you, but what have I really learned about it? Where's my heart? God knows my heart. And if Mike keeps dogging me back there, see, there's going to be a major offense going on, and that's where we have to work it. We have to take time in order to get ourselves correct with God. Okay, chapter 3, avoiding the offensive trap. Huh?
That's why.
Chapter 3, chapter 4. Y'all can comment on us now, Mike. You can go ahead and do that. Okay. And Jasper.
You can tell we rehearsed this, right?
Okay. Offense in relationships. Subtle offenses. What subtle offenses do quietly shape our attitudes. And Chris had mentioned that earlier about it can be very, very low key. You can be more I look at it from my boss and my relationship there. He can say things, like in a staff meeting, or do things, teachers out there in the group, you've had supervisors over you who may say things about you, subtle jabs that will get you, but nothing that you can retaliate with. So you just have to sit there and go, wow, I can't believe they just said that about me. But things that are like that, you just have to forgive that person and allow time to come in and take heal. But the question is, why does offense often damage relationships within the body of Christ? This is where the subtle side of it comes in. If we're in the church body here, and we've mentioned this earlier, as we grow and we have more people coming in, the opportunity and the probability that we will be offended is greater. Somebody's going to offend others, and the elders may never hear about it. And all of a sudden, by the time you hear about it, this subtle offense has now become a tidal wave, and it's coming to you because you've got to now try to reconcile it. And it's the ambush side of it, where Satan has now trapped some members that are now creating division, gossiping, and you try to stop that. But it should stop with them. If they understand truly what we're talking about here, that's where it should stop. And you're looking at the answer there on your sheet. Says offense shifts focus from unity to self-protection. It creates suspicion, withdrawal, and division. Satan uses offense to fracture fellowship and weaken the church's witness. The scriptures here, Ephesians 4:2-3, preserve unity in humility. If we do that alone right there, if we're humble, because if you're not humble, the opposite of that's going to be prideful. If you got a proud heart and you're not going to forgive, I'm not going to come to Scott because Scott's wrong. See, and if I have that in my mind without at least going to him and us talking about it, then I've created a barrier, and I will not be, in relationship with him. I will not be in unity with the church, and then I definitely, when I pray, God's just going to sit there and go, you're just mumbling. There's nothing coming through. So, John 17:21, Jesus prayed for unity. That was in that long prayer when Jesus prayed for, his disciples. He prays there. If you go back into John 17 and read through that, it's a great prayer. And then 1 Corinthians, members care for one another. We've got a good group. We started off very small years and years ago when Scott was a little baby, and we have come a long way to a bigger congregation, added on here when we were in the other auditorium. Things have changed, and as things change, that's where we're looking at now. I mean, there could be more people continuing to come in here, and how are we going to handle it? How do we adapt ourselves with a mind and an attitude towards humility and not pride? That's the key there for that one. Okay, chapter 5.
Chapter 5, living free from offense. Question, what role does forgiveness play in freedom from offense? And by the way, y'all are welcome to pipe in and with questions or thoughts as we go.
Oh, we're going to call on you just to talk. That's the other side of it.
But how important is forgiveness in living free from the offense?
Probably the most important.
If you don't forgive, can you possibly live free from offense? Because you're going to get offended, aren't you? Somebody's going to do something, say something, look at you wrong, they're going to offend you. And sometimes it's going to be legitimate on purpose, intentional, and they meant to hurt you. And if you can't forgive that, then you can't live free from it. And how important is that? Well, we talked about the parable of the unforgiving servant with the two servants, right? The one that owed something like 4.5 tons of gold is the equivalent of his debt.
Yeah.
And the master, he said, I'll pay you back, I'll pay you back. And the master says, I'll forgive it because I know you can't pay it back. And then he ran out to his buddy that owed him a few $100 and grabbed him by the throat and had him thrown in jail. And so what do we get from that? Ephesians 4 says that you need to forgive the way God forgave you. And one of the places, there are several verses about forgiveness. It says that God will forgive you to the same extent that you forgive others. So how much do you want to be forgiven? I think I want to be forgiven a lot. And because I know I need to be forgiven a lot. And I have a hard time wanting to forgive you that much. But if I want God to forgive me a lot, I've got to learn that, right, Mike?
Chris,
Hey, Mike first and then you, Chris.
The Lord's Prayer tells us that exactly, because our debts we forgive others.
Yep, as we forgive others. That's it. Chris?
but say we do forgive, and we, in our mind, we really clear it, that we forgave them, let them go. But we still hold that in, you know what I mean? That can eat people up ultimately. And, I've had issues happen to me, and I've had brothers and sisters that I could talk to here to kind of let me vent, And my wife is awesome at that too.
Yeah.
But if you hold that in, it sometimes it can cause more damage than just blasting this person and telling them, hey, I didn't understand that, I didn't.
When you're holding it in, it's like a cancer eating you out, right? And so the forgiveness doesn't mean you forget, and forgiveness isn't something that you can always do. I'll get to you in just a minute. It's not something that's automatic, and it's not something that's instantaneous quite often, is it? Sometimes it takes a long time to get to the point where you need to, where you realize you need to, and then it takes a while from there to work through it because hurts don't heal automatically or instantaneously.
I don't need an
Right?
excuse to play, so usually if I have something like that that's bothering me, I'll find something fun or go play
There you go.
somewhere and
Sheridan.
Sheridan?
I think a lot of times we want the Hebrews 8:12 kind of forgiveness for ourselves. That's what we expect from God. But we don't want to give that kind, because we're so often saying things like, well, I've forgiven them. I've forgiven them. But in the back of your mind, have you really?
Right.
If you're still holding it against them, if you're still remembering that as an offense against you, have you truly,
Right. And there's,
truly forgiven them?
I think there's and I can't give you scripture on this, but I think there's a level of discernment, because we say forgive and forget. Well, we don't forget as easily as God does.
We don't.
But if you're holding on to it, you haven't forgiven yet. Now, there's also, and I mentioned this, I think probably this week, Larry Burkett, the financial advisor, used to say, don't let your Christian principles get in the way of bad, or don't make unwise business decisions based on some of this. So, and my example was, if you stole from me, I'm not gonna give you the keys to my house while I'm going on vacation. I may have forgiven you, but I'm not gonna be stupid, right? Because I may have forgiven you of having stolen from me and may not have ever recovered it, and that's fine, but I'm not gonna give you the opportunity until the trust has been restored. And I can forgive without the trust being restored. And so there's some discernment there, in my opinion. And again, don't hold me to this. This is Chris, not Jesus. So that's just my thought on that.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, in all of this, one of the important things is to ask the Lord to help you forgive.
Mm-hmm.
And once you have forgiven the person, no, you don't want to forget the action that caused that offense, because you may repeat it. So it's not forgiving and forgetting, but it's how you remember what you've done. If you're remembering that with the idea you do not want to repeat that, then that's the way the Lord wants
That's-
that to, that
So,
to take place.
so self-protection is not the same as holding on to the offense.
Exactly.
There is a difference.
Yeah, and the more we rehearse it in our mind,
Yes.
you offended me, and I go back, this may have been years, and I've given y'all that example, it took me over 20 years to get rid of something, but I kept rehearsing it over and over. And what it was doing was Satan was building a tower in my brain, because that's where he affects us. The two angels sitting on your shoulder, talking to you, that's the concept. But Satan will continually try to get you to isolate you. If he can isolate you, he's winning. You're taking the bait and you're holding on to the bait. But the more you rehearse it, the more you are embittered. Even though you give lip service to God, God knows your heart. And you haven't really forgiven. It takes, you read back, with David, at times right after he had the relationship with Bathsheba in the Psalms there, he just had face down, God, I messed up. I messed up really bad. And sometimes it takes us to going that far, but don't let Satan have that tower in your head, because that's where he's going to start with us.
And one other thing that's important is that we know each other. Because if you know that I'm very sensitive in a particular area, you are not going to use that, or you would try to avoid that, or find a different way to work with that person. But the other thing is so important that we know each other, and we know what causes offenses and that kind of thing. And we know how sensitive this person may be in that area. And they may, you may be able to help them to grow to the point where they will not be as easily offended. But knowing each other is really an important.
I just had a thought that backed up my non-scriptural thought a minute ago. Did God forgive David for Bathsheba? Every time Scripture mentions Bathsheba, from then on in Scripture, how does God describe Bathsheba? The wife of Uriah. Did God forget what David had done?
Exactly, yeah.
He still remembered, and he placed a value on that marriage also. But he remembered, but David was still forgiven.
And Judas Iscariot, what does it say every time his name's mentioned? the one who betrayed Jesus.
Yeah.
You know, so again, God's throwing it there in front of us so that we understand, and that's where the humility side of it comes in, from us being humble and approaching it. Okay, chapter 6. Chapter 6, hiding from reality. Question 6, how do offended believers hide, and why is isolation spiritually dangerous? How do we hide from reality? The answer, anyone else can read it, but I will go ahead and read it. Answer says, offended believers hide through withdrawal, avoidance, and self-justification. Isolation removes accountability and truth, allowing deception to grow. Again, you're getting into Satan where he is separating you, if he can divide you. Whereas as a congregation and as a group of believers, we hold each other accountable. That's one thing when people say, why do you go to church? And say, well, I need to be held accountable, because if Satan can isolate me, that means I'm one step closer to going back to the way I used to live. You know, that's what I try to avoid, and I don't want to go back there. So as a group, y'all hold me accountable. If I come before you, if I did something wrong, I can go forward, ask God to forgive me, ask the congregation to forgive me, because I represent the Church of Christ. I represent Somerville. And people on the outside that are not members here are going to look at me. Well, you know, if they see me as a humble servant who admitted wrong, came forward and asked God to forgive them, then that sets a whole new precedent with people out there. Mike.
My pride is very, very sensitive, so I, like the plague, avoid doing anything that offends her. And as a general person, I tend to be fairly quick-witted. And
Is that what you call it? I'm sorry.
other people, I might say some words back that might offend them.
Mhm.
And I don't think about that because it's just part of being natural. You have to make such an effort to change and to say something that is not offensive when you have a particular person in mind.
Well, that's like Wes. You know, you had to have thick skin when you dealt with Wes, or else you were going to be offended day one. I mean, immediately. So when you get past that, then you put it back on him, and he'll shut up. So that way we got along great. Yeah, Charity.
You know, we had a situation in our life that really is ongoing. Our son dated the daughter of some of our Christian friends, and their relationship did not work. They just didn't. And those Christian friends are no longer our Christian friends. They have withdrawn from us, not for something that we've done, but because they're holding it against our son for what didn't happen. They were anticipating a marriage to happen, and this was going to be a Christian marriage made in heaven. And that's what they saw. It didn't work. To this day, they were our friends for over 30 years. Over 30 years. And we have no relationship with them now, because they have held on to this. Now, we have not, but they have held on to this. And the withdrawal from us and the avoidance of the concern, that really, in all honesty, if I might be honest, really doesn't have anything to do with either couple. Doesn't have anything to do with us.
Right.
Because this is an adult male, and it certainly didn't have anything to do with them, because she was an adult female. So we shouldn't even be bought into whatever happened. None of us should.
That's
But the
right.
avoidance and withdrawal has distanced us for probably about 5 or 6 years.
Well, if you ever meet them again, give them the book. And let them. I've given out several of the books, I'm telling you. I gave it to my boss, who will offend me often, and I finally handed him the book. I said, you need to read this. I said, it will be good, and we can discuss it.
So can we send it in the mail anonymously?
Yeah. And tell them they won the clearance, what is that sweepstake clearance house? You know, you got,
Publishers Clearinghouse.
yeah, Publishers Clearinghouse. You got a small book, you know, not the $100 million.
Ship it from a different zip code.
Yeah,
While
yeah.
you're on vacation, ship it.
No, but I mean, I've got 3 books left, and I try to, you know, Jack and I bought them and said, hey, if y'all want to buy them, you can do it. Here's what we paid on Amazon. But I started thinking about it, and when I see somebody now, especially on my staff, like teachers, y'all can relate to this. You know, when I see a teacher that's being burdened badly, you know, it's easy to hand them the book and say, go through it, you know, you can, and I'll even give them the exam later on and let them look at it to understand. It's like the Cliff Notes, you know, y'all who are older will know Cliff Notes versions of things.
Do they then give the book back?
No, I give it to them. That's a gift.
No, I mean, when you hand a book to a teacher and say, go through this at your leisure, that's rare that it actually happens.
That's right.
So do they then give it back to you?
I don't know. It's early in the game right now, so I'm just seeing. My boss left it on his desk, and I knew he wasn't gonna read it. And I had another person in my office, and I went in there and took it off his desk and came in and gave this person. I told him, I said, I know you're not gonna read it right now, but this person needs it worse than you do. So, but I'm trying to let people see if they'll dig in just to the first chapter and see what it's talking about. It's very, very helpful because it's going to happen. We're all going to be offended, and how we handle it. Tim and Charity, y'all, you know, lost friendship. I've got within our family. I'm not going to name names, but the same type thing has gone on there for years, and you know where two sisters won't talk to each other. So that's hard to imagine, but of course, if I was Jasper's relative, I could imagine that, but that would be a whole nother area. Anyway, Jasper needs to get picked on today. I have not picked on you yet, Jasper, so that's good. But we will keep rolling here. Okay,
Chapter 7, the power of words. How do words reveal offense in your heart? When you're offended and somebody says, do you really have a problem with Joe over here? Your answer is going to reveal whether you've dealt with it healthily or not, isn't it not? You said, yeah, I'm good. Baloney, right? You know, if you could say, you know, I'm worked on that, and I'm working on that, that's honest. But if you say, yeah, well, that didn't even bother me ever to start with, we know you're blowing smoke, right? So, but what does Scripture say about it? Out of the abundance of the heart.
What happens when the heart? Where is it coming from? The heart.
So when it
leads
comes
to
when it comes out your mouth, yeah. So when you're talking about so and so, when you're talking about Joe, you're gonna say, well, you know, or there are going to be indicators that you haven't dealt with that yet, right? James talks about the tongue's power. So if you're bad mouthing a brother, you're doing wrong anyway because you're not supposed to be bad mouthing, but it probably reveals that you haven't dealt with some of those issues. Power of life and death are in the tongue. If you really want to know if when I've gotten over Bobby being mean to me, you will know it by what I say about Bobby. If I'm saying, well, if when I start talking good about Bobby, he's a great guy, he did this for me, then you'll know that I've gotten past it.
Or when you are gossiping. Gossiping, it just branches out a little bit, and yesterday we were getting wood from my diesel instructor's house. If y'all are watching Robert, good. I hope y'all are. And we started talking about our boss, okay? He was bringing up some points, but immediately I had to start thinking through that to say, I don't need to be saying anything derogatory, negative, because I'm just adding fuel to Satan's fire of what he wants to do as far as separating us. So if consciously you see that happening, think about it and understand what you say is going to impact how, you know, my friend was feeling, because they have been offended. They have been offended is what they're thinking. So I want to try to bridge that, and the only way to do it is with humility, not adding fuel to the fire to keep saying, yeah, he's a no good so-and-so, but you want to get away from that as much as you can. And forgiveness, like in here, frees the believer. Again, for them to be able to forgive is going to release them from that stronghold that Satan's trying to establish in their mind and allow them to move forward. Because if not, you're just going to stay stagnant and just live in that world of you know, you regret it, you've been offended, and you want to get out of that, though. You need to be freed. Okay. Any questions so far? Jasper, you okay?
Yeah,
Okay.
not at all.
Lot, yeah.
I was gonna suggest an example. There's a person here in this congregation, when I've been in the presence of them quite a number of times, and when someone brings up a negative, he automatically goes to the positive and start talking about the positive traits, which should give you the clue that we need to continue with the positive and
Yes.
Yeah.
stay away from
Yep.
that kind of thing.
Well, if everybody thinks like that,
Yes.
then, because you never, we get up to 400 or 500 people in here, okay? Now you're gonna start getting groups, because cliques are easy to form. And then that becomes an issue that as a whole congregation, we have to look at it and not allow it to happen, you know, in love, in humility, you know, trying to diffuse, you know, a situation like that. Okay. Chapter 8, all that can be shaken. This is where we get into, when God shakes you, it's usually very exciting. Okay, explain the purpose of spiritual shaking and how it relates to offense. Spiritual shaking. God allows shaking to remove what is built on pride, offense, or self-reliance, so that what is built on Christ remains. Offense cannot survive divine testing. Now, our scriptures here, Hebrews 12, shaking reveals what remains. And it gives the example of silver or gold, when it's put into the refiner's fire, the dross rises to the top, and then the pure is left in there. But what does it take to get that dross to rise? It takes heat. How many of y'all like to be in heat? See, that's when Satan is putting the fire on you to try to get you to succumb, to crumble, to, you know, hurt you as much as he can. If they can do that, if you're suffering from depression or anxiety, that separates you at that point, because then he's digging deeper and deeper. And the more he can try to destroy your life, that's what his mission is. That's his goal. And if he can separate him, he separates you from everybody else, and you're living alone and isolated. You have no strength from the congregation, from your brothers and sisters, because he has now separated you. Therefore, that's where, you know, I can confide in Chris that I've got an issue and a problem, and Chris, it doesn't have to be an answer, but he can be a sounding board for what I need to get out of me. That's the purging that I need to get it out of me, and therefore we can do that as we continue to grow. Okay.
You talked about venting. Sometimes you gotta have somebody you can do that with.
And it talks in here, like, trials reveal our heart condition. When you're going through a trial, that's what's in your heart. And you may not speak it, okay? That's where you need to confide in somebody to be able to speak it. The largest industry, I think, in medicine right now, psychiatrists. I think they're making at least the most money, is what I've seen, because they allow you the opportunity to speak out and talk and get things off of your chest, so to speak. And when they're doing that, it's relieving you because you're at least speaking it out, you know. Anything there?
Chapter 9, pulling down strongholds. How does this happen? How do offenses build into a stronghold? They start small, don't they? When you let that get in the door, then it's a small thing, right? It's a foothold. But then when you replay it in your mind and you misinterpret and you add to it and you start doing all these things and rehashing it and saying, well, what really happened, then you're just putting another brick on it and another brick on it, and you're building it up until it's a stronghold, and you're on the inside of your stronghold, and who's with you? Nobody. It's you. You're completely isolated because you built the wall and you isolated yourself from your Christian brothers, and now you are completely ineffective, and Satan's got you where he doesn't care if you're out living a life of sin. If you're not doing anything good, he's got you sidelined. He won.
And when you look at in the Garden of Eden, going back then, you know, because we start talking about lies, how Satan will lie to us because he's the father of lies. It's when you read through what Satan was saying to Eve, it's very subtle. It's not even a real obvious lie that he's telling her. But what he does is he's planting that seed in her mind to say that, hey, God's holding out on you. why just eat from, this one tree, the fruit's good, go ahead, you should be able to eat from that too. So he plants the seed, and what does it do? It changes her total perspective in her mind, and she goes ahead and does it, she sins. And here we are today, so.
So how do you get rid of that? You start with forgiveness, right? Paul talked about the spiritual warfare, and that's what this is. Satan is trying to cause division in our church. He will, and as we grow and are more productive and see growth, he's going to attack in more and different ways. But he's also just trying individually with you to get you on the sideline. So Paul says we've got spiritual warfare going on, and we have to use spiritual warfare weapons to fight this. And so you start with praying, and you start with forgiving, and doing those things, and you tear down the stronghold, and it makes you more effective.
Okay, chapter 10, forgiveness and atonement. Up here, forgiveness flows from Christ's atonement. The question is, why is forgiveness essential to the gospel? When you were saved, go back in, remember I told y'all, go through your 2-minute elevator talk. All right, if you've got an opportunity to talk to someone, you've got 2 minutes. In other words, even as a coworker, to mention anything about Christ, about the gospel. Well, yesterday, Ace Hardware, Jack Smith and I just happened to end up in Ace Hardware together, and we're at the checkout counter. And Lynn, young girl, 22 years old, got a baby, got a husband. She's sitting there, and Jack, shame on me for not being the first to do it, but Jack was there and saying, Lynn said, we've got a Bible study, 4 o'clock, meets up at the school where I'm at, Sunday evenings. Said, why don't you and your husband and, bring the baby and come to it. Right then, that was a 30-second spiel on what we're doing, because she likes both of us, because we give her a hard time like we do Mike and Jasper, but we connect with her, and she may come, we don't know. But that's your 2-minute opportunity to explain something, because they think they're living okay. They're okay in the world, everything's great, nothing's gonna ever happen to me, because if you ask them, if you die, where are you going to go? Well, I'm going to heaven, because everybody's going to heaven. If you haven't murdered anybody, then you should be going to heaven. So that's the concept. Chris?
We're so blessed that we could come here first thing in the morning and you beat us up just right out of the gate. Thank you.
I try my best. That's what we do, Mike.
No, that was just a reaction.
Okay, I got you. Okay, forgiveness reflects God's mercy towards sinners. A forgiven believer must forgive others or risk spiritual hardness. Again, if you don't forgive and you let this whole situation, like Charity and Tim, that couple, that's 30 years. Mine was over 20 years with my roommate, okay, before I let it go, because I could not stand it any longer. It was just eating me inside. So the longer you let that happen, the more it eats at you. You rehearse it, you replay it, you go through it, the lies just abound are bouncing around everywhere. So you just got to understand, let it go.
Okay. So 11, we got about 2 more minutes, and then we need to get on to their survey. So we're
I'm sorry.
That's right.
Yeah.
We're going to roll through 11 and go into 12. Reconciliation. That's the goal, right? Be reconciled to your brothers. It helps you be reconciled to God. So explain the difference between forgiveness and reconciliation. Somebody? Forgiveness, reconciliation.
Forgiveness is different, because it only depends on one person, reconciliation only requires both of you to be together.
You can forgive me for being a jerk to you. And you've gotten forgiveness handled, right? Whether or not, so Tim and Charity's example is a good one. That couple is not willing to be reconciled. The great goal would be for reconciliation to happen. Whether that happens or not is up to everybody involved. Forgiveness is your side, right? You can do the forgiveness. You can't be responsible for the reconciliation. You can work toward it, and that is always our goal, because what did God do? God reconciled with us, right? He sent Jesus to pay the price to get us our forgiveness, so that we could be reconciled to him, so that we can be with him. 2 Corinthians talks a lot about the ministry of reconciliation, that God did all the work for us so that we can be reconciled to him. That's the goal. may or may not happen. Forgiveness is the part we're responsible for, and we are responsible for it. Reconciliation we work toward, but that takes everybody involved.
And you get a husband and wife, one's a Christian, one's not. You know, Bible says don't just go ahead and divorce them because they're not a Christian, but by your life, where the spouse can see what you are doing and how you live your life, they may be converted. And that's part of what we see here, when not only from reconciliation, but forgiveness. It's how everybody else sees us. How does the world see us out here and how we're different? Especially at work, especially outside of the walls of the church. That's where really you have to be in an understanding world. Okay, last chapter, The Way Out. What is the greatest danger of unresolved offense in a believer's life? Unresolved offense leads to deception, spiritual stagnation, broken relationships, and loss of witness. It blocks grace and invites bitterness. So, right now, you've got to look at a transformation. Instead of becoming isolated, bitter, resentful, you forgive, you reconcile, and you find your way out of that, because that is a pit that if you get into it, it's hard to get out of. Any questions? Okay. Whether you remain a member of the Church of Christ, it will be on the grading of this exam for you now.
So you have a survey on the table in front of you, so you can, the answers you can do are multiple choice numerically all the way down through number 4, A and B. Number 5, maybe the most important, your thoughts, comments about this class, classes in general, what you'd like to see coming, that maybe we haven't offered in a while. Any thoughts that you got about Sunday school in any way or shape or form, please put down on number 5.
Number 5, great tag team.
Well, thank you.
Turn around and tell Jasper to write that down too. Yeah.
Oh! So yeah,
Now,
please take
hey.
a couple minutes and put these on the basket underneath the sign that says pantry, along with the pens, please.
I've enjoyed it. I appreciate the class. Y'all have been good. It's been good. You can get the book on Amazon. If you want to get a couple of them, give them out to friends. I'm doing that now. That's become kind of for $15, it's a great way to try to introduce somebody to Christ, and forgiveness, reconciliation, and we go through the entire thing. And you can keep the exam and show it to them when you start studying with them.